And our friend Kyle Long, former Bear, number 75, now a great dad, joining us now on the CarX Tire and Auto Hotline on Waddle and Silvy. Kyle, how the hell are you?
Great dad is debatable. It's great to hear your voices, and to hear my voice on the intro was kind of haunting a little bit. I'm doing really well, and obviously, as many Chicagoans, there's a lot going on in my life right now. I got a lot invested in these Chicago Bears in terms of emotion and my body and all that. So it's a lot of fun watching, and I'm excited to talk a little Bears with you guys today.
We used to hear stories all the time with you, with Jay, when you were the young pup, when he used to take you under his wing and he had the kids and you were like Uncle Kyle, you were the babysitter. So you were just saying that you being a great dad is debatable. What are the things that you have learned about fatherhood in the first several years?
Well, I'm finding that it's a lot like coaching the high schoolers that I tried to coach when I finished playing. You know, sometimes you're just not going to get through to them, and sometimes you have to understand that they're babies, they're toddlers. Not everything is, nothing lasts forever in terms of these phases you go through as a parent. Like, my daughter would tell me to go away from me for like 2 weeks straight, and I just wore it for 2 weeks. And then after a while, she comes up with a new line. And sometimes it's funny, sometimes a little less rude. But at the end of the day, they're your people and you're theirs. It's a lot of fun. I've got a great wife, Kate, who's just a rock star with the girls. And we're really lucky to have two healthy ones.
Gives you a different perspective on all things in life, doesn't it, to be a father, especially of two girls? Yeah,
and part of me wishes I could have been playing while I wish I could have had kids while I was playing, because now that you mentioned, the OGs that you play with that have kids, they seem like they're collecting Social Security, but then you realize you become them really quickly. I wonder how I would have been as a player and a dad. It would have been a real challenge. So I have a lot of respect for guys who do it the right way.
So let's talk about the buzz that exists here in Chicago now with this new team. And it's, as you know, Kyle, it is a lot about the quarterback, but Ryan Poles and this group up here have done a brilliant job upgrading the overall talent on this roster and putting an infrastructure in place for Caleb to help him succeed.
Yeah, they've done a fabulous, terrific job. And I remember getting the chance to meet Ryan Poles in the weight room in Kansas City. I was rehabbing. Go figure, guys. I was out of practice and I was rehabbing. And Ryan Poles was in there lifting weights every day. And he was really religious about getting after it. I really enjoyed our talks. Little did I know he was going to become the general manager of my favorite team. So it's been fun to watch him. I've been rooting for him the whole way through. And I'm glad that he pulled the trigger with Caleb Williams, and he's obviously going to go down as a Bears Hall of Famer for his moves in the offseason the last few years. And it's been fun to watch him put this thing together, whether it be defensively, going after Montez Sweat last season, and watching that shot in the arm just shoot that defense into top 3 conversation by the end of the year. And we get to watch a stud quarterback inherit that defense, and you can see they're playing for one another. These guys are fired up. And as you know, Tom, it's when you have a shot at doing this thing, everybody kind of picks it up a little bit.
Kyle Long joining us. It's Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. And that's what struck us, that we played one of your, it was from McAfee or from your pod. I forget which one, you're a media star these days, and maybe that's why you put us on.
It could have been my pod. It could have been my podcast, Pushing the Pile, on CBS Sports. You can check us out on NFL on CBS YouTube. But
I think I was talking
about it on McAfee.
That's right. That's why we're on the pay no mind list, because you're like a media star these days. And Carmen and Yurko wanted to pass along. They say hello to you as well.
Love those guys. I love my Chicago media family. In the roughest of weeks as a player, you guys showed me the ropes in the media, and it's been so much fun to try to follow in y'all's footsteps and take a little bit of knowledge from every single one of you guys.
So, and as I was asking about Caleb, you've always gone to bat for the Bears quarterback because you have been loyal. But the way you were glowing about Caleb is not the way I've heard you speak about past quarterbacks. What's different that you see in Caleb versus the other guys?
I don't have to defend Caleb ever for anything. I mean, he is a superstar, and there is a difference between being a quarterback and being a superstar. And people say with all due respect a lot, with all due respect to the stud quarterbacks that I protected and the guys that were there after I left, Caleb Williams is built different. And you could see it in college, and a lot of people said he's not going to be able to do what he did in college. Well, you're looking at it, and you're going to see it in the regular season, and that'll shut up the preseason guys as well. But I don't think any moment is too big for him. I think he embraces the spotlight, and I think he has an aura about him that the guys in the locker room can just feel. And that's really where I'm at with Caleb. I need to see it in the regular season to cement this whole thing. But my God, if I was a betting man, I'd put my money on Caleb Williams to be a stud in this league for a long time.
And then, to throw around that word, and we love him too. And you know how I feel. I can't wait to see what it brings. But we get a lot of pushback, or maybe not a lot, but there still are a lot of people will say it was just against the second stringers, or he went 3 and out in the first 3 series against those second stringers, or pumped the brakes. So how could you call him a superstar already? How would you counter that?
I would counter that by saying this: he's not playing against the back. He's not playing against the backups. He's not playing against the starters. The game of football is you against physics, and he defies physics with the things he can do with the football: going left, throwing right, going left, throwing downtown, passing up the tight end on the over on a 15-yard over, and taking the shot downtown. The guy is a risk taker. It's the same reason you see Steph Curry pull up from the logo instead of towing the line. He just says, you know what? Screw it. Let's try this.
Ooh, Kyle, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we lost your connection. Hey, I thought one of the interesting things you said also on one of your vignettes was you talked about the experience you had. You saw Patrick Mahomes up close and personal, and you saw how the guys on the offensive line, knowing that you had that dude behind them, changed the way that you played or ramped you up. The offensive line here in town is, if there is a question mark on this team, you can ask questions about how good they're going to be. If you can, just talk about the dynamic that exists with an offensive lineman's perspective, knowing that you have a player of this caliber behind you.
Well, one thing that's really important about the offensive line, as you well understand, is continuity and having this, the same group out there. And we've seen 4 out of the 5 guys out there a ton. And I'm anxious to see the 5th be out there with some more occurrences here soon. And I hope Nate will be able to play. But the 4 guys that we've seen for the duration of camp have looked really good in my eyes. They're coming along really well. I watched Braxton finishing his guy at the end of the play on the scramble drill. And it just, it solidifies what I'm saying about the fact that these guys know they have something special behind them. All you got to do is go an extra beat sometimes. And you could be in the Sports Center top 10 in the background somewhere making a block.
How do you think opposing defenses, when they get their first chance at trying to defend Caleb in this offense, how do you think they'll go about trying to get the rookie off his game?
Well, I think they want Caleb to prove to them that he's going to be able to sit in the pocket and go through his progression and take what the defense gives you. And, the great quarterbacks have to adjust. If he's got to go from Steph Curry to hitting elbow jumpers instead, I think he understands the game well enough, and I think he'll take the opportunities as they're given. But the defense, they're going to want to just see him be patient, and they're going to want to see him try to stay in the pocket and make this offense go from there.
You mentioned Nate Davis as we talked to Kyle Long on Waddle and Silvy. How important is it, Kyle, to, and obviously not only to be available for the games, that's most important, but one thing about Nate is he hasn't been here for OTAs. And I do understand that that's collectively bargained, and he doesn't have to be. But then when he's not available for games and he's not available through a lot of training camp, you question, is he getting his body right? So how important is it for an offensive lineman to practice with his other offensive linemen for the chemistry, especially with a young offense with a rookie quarterback?
Well, I want to empathize with Nate because I've been through the physical rigors of playing in this league, particularly at that position, and it's brutal. I mean, I don't think people understand. But to your question, yes, it's very important, practicing, being there every day. And Harry Heastand was really the first coach that I had where it really became clear to me that when I wasn't practicing, when I wasn't becoming calloused physically on a day in, day out basis, individual period, long drive drill, that stuff hardens you a bit. And, at a certain point, I just couldn't physically go out there and do that every day. But I realized that my technique went out the window. The fastball, the 85-mile-an-hour fastball feels like 96, looks like 96. The game slows down when you practice, and it's important.
You think it's like the way we used to do it, Kyle, obviously wasn't the right way. I mean, we were out there for 3 hours a day, twice a day, 3 hours of practice twice a day. But the way they're doing it now, is there not enough contact? Is there not enough practice to get you ramped up and ready to play in the first month of the season? Or you think they're getting it right?
Dude, I mean, for my position, I didn't have to tackle anybody, so there wasn't a ton of that technique. But we have our own technique in our own right. You can only practice at full speed. And we do get ample opportunity. Are you kidding me? I mean, we're beating each other up every day at practice. What people see, the physicality on Sunday that you see, that's just what we're doing on, the weekdays with each other. So that's not lost on me. But I do feel like we do get enough physical contact in training camp, and it's still pretty long. It's not as long as you're talking about and what my dad had to deal with, or even what my older brother Chris dealt with, who's 4 years older than me. But they've done a good job limiting that stuff and keeping guys healthier in the off season, particularly the vets. But it's important to get after it a little bit. You got to callous yourself.
All right, so let's go through this here, Kyle, as we talk to Kyle Long, Waddle and Silvy on ESPN 1000. This year's team has Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Roma Dunze, Swift in the backfield. They've got two really good tight ends here in Everett and Cole Kmet. And then the quarterback, obviously. Back in 2013, when you were a rookie, you guys finished, I believe, second in the NFL, which is never remembered. Like, no one remembers that your 2013 team finished number 2 in offense that year. You guys had Marshall, you had Alshon, you had Forte coming out of the backfield, Martellus Bennett at tight end, and who am I missing, if anybody?
We had an O-line that started. We played every single snap together. None of us missed a snap, which is, I thought that was a regular thing at the end of that year. Yeah. That was a rare breed of season. So it was fun, but we just couldn't tie it together.
And that's a sneaky thing there. That's probably one of the biggest keys to being two overall that no one talks about. It always goes to the skill thing. So two-part question, how important is that that no one talks about, and which team are you taking offensively?
Man, that's a great question. You would have to think that the 2013 team would run the hell out of that football. You know what I mean? I don't care if they lined up the Monstars. We were going to run that rock on you. And when you loaded the box, you know where we were going. It was 15 or 83. And good luck with those monsters, too. So I'm going to leave it up in the air. I'll let the fans argue about it. But I'm prideful, so I'm going to say first down Bears, 2013.
Okay. All right.
Hey, have you stayed in touch with our favorite quarterback from back in the day?
Jay Cutler, the Jay Cutler show, which turned into the Kyle Long show. Yes, we stay in touch. Jay got to work with my older brother inside the NFL last year. So I found that experience, the Jay Cutler show. We stay in touch. He's a busy man. He's a fun guy. I think he's got a different lifestyle than I do right now, but yeah, we stay in touch.
That's awesome.
How entertaining would those teams be if you guys were on Hard Knocks?
It's funny. Most of those O linemen would have hated the idea of Hard Knocks, and I would have pretended to hate it as well, but man, I would have been giddy and just going a little bit extra on the smack talk and maybe a little bit after the whistle, trying to get on there. I'm a bit of a diva. I didn't fit in that regard in the O-line, but I would have been excited to do Hard Knocks for sure. And those guys would have been hilarious.
Do you like watching the show? Do you think it gives a pretty good representation of what's really happening at camp?
You know, they Photoshop the vibe a little bit. Sometimes they do a great job with the soundtrack, and it's upbeat. You know how those mornings are at training camp. Walking, you can hear the buckles on your shoulder pads. That's about it, because nobody's talking, because everybody's so beat up from the day before. They do a good job of painting a pretty picture there.
Yeah, Kyle, it's great to catch up with you. All the best, and hopefully we'll talk to you here down the road. And when we do text, that we hear back.
Hey, love you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. Be good, buddy.
Pushing the Pile podcast, yes?
Yeah, you can find us Monday through Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
There you go.
It's awesome.
Great
Thanks,
work,
brother.
Kyle. Thank you.